Pink with Runaway. Welcome back. You're listening to the Country Viewpoint here on your colour of country life, Flow FM. Time to switch our focus back to the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. We've been covering this a lot over the last few weeks, and it's time to discuss the interim report of the 2023 Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And we're talking about the Productivity Commission, the review that's come out. And joining me on the line is the commissioner, one of the commissioners who was a part of this, Joanne Chong. Lovely to be with you, Joanne. How are you?
Oh, thanks so much, Ellis. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's talk about this. So we've got basically a review that's come out saying that, it's not enough. What's being proposed and what's happened over the last 5 or so years hasn't really resulted in a great deal of productivity when it comes to water conservation. We know that this is a very complex and controversial issue. Admittedly, we've spoken more to those who are strongly against the Murray-Darling Basin Plan on this program. So what exactly has this report unearthed?
Oh, thank you for having me, as I said, and thank you so much for the question. Really, really important one. Can I just start by noting, as you said, that it's an interim report, so it does give good indications of the direction we're heading in. But we're really, interested from hearing from any of your listeners on input or other ideas or evidence over the next few weeks. So I'm just going to give a shout out to ourselves to look at the website if anyone is interested, and please get in touch as well. But back to your really important question about, what is it that's not been enough? So, we in the team, myself and the team, we travelled around the basin and, visited 17 different locations. And what we heard almost universally was this real frustration with governments about implementing the plan. People were frustrated that things haven't been progressed and frustrated with how engagement had been done and also, really frustrated with not knowing what's going on. And for the Commission in formulating the interim report, this focus on accountability for what's been implemented or not has been a key focus for the Commission in terms of our interim recommendations. And so more transparency and accountability is needed. And we recommended that the Commonwealth Minister for Water should report annually on progress of projects, of Basin Plan projects, on what's feasible, what's not, and how much has been spent as well. So that's a key interim recommendation that we made.
Yes, that's one of the things that you indeed said yourself, Joanne. The Australian Government, to quote the Australian Government Minister for Water, should report annually to Parliament on the progress, feasibility and cost to date of supply projects and decide on their future. So just looking at this whole, subject of accountability, we often get a lot of people coming on and saying that people do tend to pass the buck. Exactly where does the accountability lie? Obviously, the government comes to mind, but are you able just to expand a little bit on the details that you've mentioned there? Yeah,
no, certainly. So the Basin Plan is really important because it supports the basin, which is the lifeblood of the people and of everyone who lives in the basin, and everyone knows that how important it is to keep the basin healthy and to keep it working. And so that's where the Basin Plan comes in, and it does include a range of commitments that both state governments and Commonwealth government have made to keep this system in delicate balance. It's a hard thing to do, but these commitments have been made. So in terms of accountability, states are responsible for implementing, but it is the Commonwealth government that funds these activities. And so that's the focus for accountability in terms of implementing the plan.
Joanne, looking at what you said to start this interview off, where you said you've visited so many different Murray-Darling Basin Plan towns and spoken to people there, it's really important to highlight that it's not just the irrigators and the farmers who are sort of being impacted by all the sort of, negative outcomes that have come about through the 10 years of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan that we've had so far. It's people connected to them through communities, isn't it? So it's very far wide-ranging.
Yeah, no, certainly. And, certainly people are part of their communities, and it's so important, to them to have this basin healthy and working. I mean, something that we did hear, though, was that the plan is important. So, unlike many years ago, there's this real recognition that this plan, this commitment to get things done is really important. And so that was, really, really resounding. But what we heard was that disappointment or with how it's been done, ideas about how it could be done better as well. And if I may, because I know there's a lot of, negative kind of aspects of that's being reported, not just by us, but over many years as well, just to highlight one brighter marker, if I may, and that's what we heard from communities about the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder. So one of the few government agencies that does have trust in some areas as well, in many areas. And we actually heard from people how they appreciated how the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, in examples of how they went about working in partnership with communities and with irrigation infrastructure operators to get water out onto the environment. It's been a bit of a journey for them to get there, but, that's certainly a really bright marker. It's related to what we heard from communities, a real willingness to participate, to engage and to, work with governments, to partner with governments on kind of local actions to get things done. And, the true Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder was one example of that we heard.
And you've also said in the report, Joanne, that basin governments need to improve how they partner and share decision-making with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and publicly and how they publicly report on this. Has this been endorsed by all the people you've spoken with?
Well, something that we did hear from many people, not just First Nations people and communities themselves, but others in the community, from industry and from governments, that more does need to be done to recognise the values and deliver on the interests of First Nations people. So that kind of intent, if you like, is there for many quarters. But seeing that intent through to actions and decisions and outcomes for First Nations people is where many governments have fallen over. And in one area, this is engagement in general, but, engagement also with First Nations. First Nations people have been repeatedly asked for views and in kind of, these kind of engagement processes. But then the views shared are, many examples of them just being ignored. So, as you mentioned, that's where our call for this kind of transparency on reporting of engagement about what's heard and whether or not and how that was reflected in decisions is an important one.
Well, as far as looking ahead, it's reports like these which are surely going to help shape better outcomes with regards to the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. So looking ahead at potential new legislation, how does this have to come about in the views of yourself and everyone else that's taken part of contributing on this report as to shape a better Murray-Darling Basin Plan going forward?
Yeah, it certainly is a live topic at the moment with the proposed legislation being discussed and debated. It might seem a little bit idealistic to hope for, but there is an element of there needing to be cooperation, I guess, between the states. It's transboundary. It's not the only transboundary kind of water resource issue in the world, but it's sort of the nature of having many different states involved that, all really do need to step up to the game. And so I think that's something that's really important for all states to do that and the Commonwealth as well.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, and this is a really important issue, and we'll certainly continue to cover the Murray-Darling Basin Plan here on Fly FM. Commissioner Joanne Chong, thank you so much for your contributions on the air. We really appreciate it, and we may well speak with you again in the future.
Thank you so much, Ellis. Really appreciate it.
Lots more coming your way on today's show. Back soon.